and welcome back to a brand new season of Head Over Heels. I'm Maggie, your host, in case you guys forgot. It's been a really, really long time. Our first season ended back in March, and since then, a lot of things has happened. The world changed tremendously, and I've changed a lot as well. We will get to that in a bit, but before we begin, some updates. To those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm sure you have noticed our brand new set. So shout out to all you guys who have contributed. Woohoo! And instead of releasing it every week, we will only be releasing a brand new episode in every 2 weeks. So you guys can take your time and listen to the episode over and over again if you want. And on top of that, we will be having different co-hosts in every episode and guests as well, which I'm very, very excited for. And speaking of co-host, today, I've got my very, very dear friend. She was actually one of our guests in the previous season, so she's quite a familiar face. But yeah, just excited for to have her on the show with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up to the one and only Lizanne.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Maggie, for having me.
Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It's just like, like you said, nervous.
I know.
It's your first episode, and I really want this to go well for you also.
And I want this to go well for us.
Of course.
Well, first time co-hosting together. I mean, the last time you were here, you were our guest. By the way, the episode was amazing. A lot of people resonated with it. In case you guys didn't catch it, it's in our first season, so go check it out. Forgot which episode. It's been way too long.
Yeah, I think it was in March, way back in March.
Yeah. So how are you?
I'm good. Thank
Really?
you so much. I know. Usually that's the answer you get, right? When you ask how are you to everybody.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine. But I know Maggie, her how are you is really deep, You have to go deep with the how are you. So Maggie, to answer your question, right now, in present time, I'm feeling nervous. Like I said, I want this to go well.
Yes.
Overall, I'm in a good space right now.
I'm happy
in spite
to hear
of
that.
everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And of course, with the pandemic and everything. But there's still some sort of anxiety that lingers from a few months back.
For sure.
Especially about my future and the future of my daughter. What's going to happen to the world with the pandemic, broken societies, and climate change, with that as well.
Yep.
So I'm furious. And I'm anxious at the same time. So that's how I'm feeling right now.
Can totally relate. I think the past 6 months were some of the most defining and character-defining moments of our lives. And let's be honest, just when 2019 were about to end, we were like, 2020 is going to be the best year ever. I remember saying that to myself and everybody around me, and lo and behold.
And I remember putting on my Instagram post, breathe on 2020. And I'm like, oh crap. Why did I say that?
Well, 2020 is like giving you a F you with a face pretty much, right?
Yeah. And Maggie, how are you?
Well, I am in, like you said, in a much, much better space, I'll have to say. And I'm glad that we are doing this now when I'm in a better hit space, to be honest. Yeah. The past couple of months has been a roller coaster ride. To those of you who have been following me on my personal journey on Instagram, I have been pretty open about it. To cut the long story short, in March, when we just ended the final episode of the first season, was my birthday. And 2 days later, I fell sick. And it was a long story short. I thought it was COVID-19 because that was when COVID was on an all-time high. And turns out I was hit by dengue fever, which was equally bad. Just as bad. Me and my partner got into dengue. Right after we recovered from dengue. The recovery period is just as painful, by the way. I think that's something that people don't really talk about much. My hair was falling. My joints were painful.
This is after dengue.
After dengue, right after. For a whole month, I was so fatigued and just tired with life and everything else. But just shortly after I recovered, end of June, I was admitted to the hospital again, this time from fainting in the bathroom, from a severe pain in my lower abdominal area. I'm not going to get too deep into it, otherwise it's going to go on forever. What I thought was just a regular doctor checkup to maybe give me medicine, I go home. It was a surgery the next day immediately. and I had to remove a ruptured ovarian cyst and an inflamed appendix. Also, because I wasn't really covered by the insurance, which was a story for another day. I know,
double surgery. I thought it was just one.
Sorry?
Double surgery.
Yes, it's double surgery.
Oh my goodness.
So that is a story for another day about the insurance thing.
Okay.
It's it's both sides' fault lah. So please get yourself an insurance and please remember to pay for it. Yeah, it was not covered. It was a pretty huge 5-figure amount that I had to fork out from my pocket without income for months. So that was painful, and that has really affected my mental health, having these very terrible experiences back to back. But you know what? Fast forward to now, I'm just glad to be alive. So whenever someone tells me, "How are you, Maggie?" my response is, "I'm just glad to be alive." It's been quite a journey to get here.
I think that's a good response, Maggie.
Right?
And for today's episode, we're actually diving deep into mental struggle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys who are listening right now, and to those of you who have also been sharing your stories and your personal struggles with me, thank you so, so much. You guys are the ones who have inspired me to start off this season with this topic, because I feel like, if anything, apart from the COVID-19 coronavirus going around, we are also going through this collective mental struggle.
Yeah.
Do I make sense?
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah?
It makes
like
sense.
everyone is anxious, everyone is unhappy, sad, depressed. So, which is why today we do have a very special guest, which I'm also very excited about. She is a licensed mental health counselor from Cara. How do we pronounce Cara? That was a conversation we had.
Yeah, we had that earlier on.
C-A-R-A. So if you guys are Malaysian, you'll probably say Cara. That was my first time pronouncing it. I said it that way. But yes, it's Cara. And what exactly is Cara? There's also a meaning behind it. And for that, ladies and gentlemen, once again, please put your hands together for Sara Au.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here, ladies.
Well, thanks for saying yes for coming on the show.
Really excited to be here.
We are excited to be asking you a lot of questions. Actually.
Yeah, we are very curious, right? About
bring
everything.
So also another reason, guys, why we are doing this episode to touch on mental health is because World Mental Health Day is actually happening on the 10th of October in 2 days, because today is the 8th of October.
Yes.
It's also your birthday on the 10th. Is that
That's
right,
right.
Lizanne?
That's
Happy
right.
birthday.
Thank you.
So yeah, there are a lot of questions surrounding and topics and conversations surrounding mental health that's been ongoing. But what does it really mean to have a mental health disorder, or if you're going through mental health? I think that's some of the questions that we'll be diving into today, which is why we have you here today, Sara.
Yeah.
So the expert is going to tell us what's up.
And educate us.
Yeah,
with a
before-
lot of things.
Yeah. Before that, though, please introduce yourself to our listeners right now. Like, who are you? What do you do? And how did you come about being a mental health counselor?
Wow, that's a really long story, but I'm going to keep it quite short.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I studied Masters of Professional Counseling, and so I am registered with the Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia. So that's the Board of Counsellors Malaysia. So I'm licensed. I'm able to practice and provide counseling. Essentially, I do in-person therapy, online therapy as well. And I started my own practice with a few of my friends. And the whole idea when we started the practice was to provide really affordable therapy, because, we really feel like in Malaysia, it's not talked enough. It's not accessible enough. And so we're trying to find, in our own little way, how can we provide our services to, the general public here?
I think that's amazing, because one of the many questions that at least most of my followers have whenever I touch on mental health, how does therapy work? How much is therapy? I cannot afford therapy. So I think what you guys are doing with this practice, that's called Cara. Is that right?
Yes, Cara.
So,
How did the name come about?
yeah.
Wow, okay. Cara is actually a navel orange, I think in America. And so when I found out about it, it's real interesting because on the outside it looks like a standard orange, but when you open it, it's a reddish flesh. So it's really different, it's really unique. So I kind of saw it as, we all, as humans, we look similar. We're all humans, but we're same kind. But when you look deep within, we're all special, we have potential. We just need to open up and find it.
Yeah.
So that's what the meaning comes from that metaphorical representation.
Yeah.
But also, coincidentally, like you would pronounce Cara.
Yes,
because
what I did.
it makes so much sense as well in the local context. As a Malaysian, Cara means like techniques, methods. And therapy is a method to, having better mental health. We as therapists, counselors, any sort of mental health professional provide different Cara.
For you to cope and get through with your struggles. I love that. That's a brilliant name now that you've broken it down for us.
Thank you.
I think what you guys are doing is amazing. We definitely need a lot more avenues and for more affordable therapy. I personally am going for therapy and I have been going for 2 years plus now with the same therapist. I love her.
Good on you.
She changed my life and I never regret it, although I would say it's very expensive. It's not the cheapest. But for me, I see it as an investment because I saw how it has really changed the way I am, the person that I was before therapy and after. Completely different in so many ways. But yeah, having said that, before I started therapy, funny question, I never knew the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, counselor, therapist. Feels like there's so many terms out there. So maybe, Sara, you can enlighten us about that.
Sure, would be happy to. Well, to start with, therapist is a very generic term, I would say. You have massage therapists, physiotherapists. It's a general way of just saying it because we give therapy.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, we're all mental health professionals. So psychiatrists specifically are people who can prescribe medication.
All right.
That's a very huge difference there. And a clinical psychologist can diagnose disorders. They cannot prescribe medications.
Okay.
They can diagnose, they do very formal assessments and, they've gone through many years of training to know specifically, do you match this list of symptoms in order to say, yes, you have an anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder or anything like that. For a mental health counselor, a licensed counselor like myself, I'm not able to diagnose, nor do I give medications. But I am trained to understand the different disorders and help people on the day-to-day issues. And essentially provide talk therapy like a clinical psychologist would.
Right. Understood. And if...
It's great because I've never been to therapy myself.
Right.
So learning from you right now, the difference between a psychiatrist, a therapist, and a psychologist, it benefits me a lot today to understand.
I hope you guys learned a thing or two and know who to go to when you need help.
Yeah.
Depending. So, okay, let's just give a scenario. I'm not feeling so good. I'm overwhelmed with work, just lost my job and family issues, drama, and I just need help. Who should I go to first?
You can start with a counselor. You talk about it. And if the counselor thinks, perhaps you want to get diagnosed for this, for more specific treatments or for medication. And that's also with your consent. It's a very collaborative approach. It's not like a doctor who's just like, here, do this, do that.
Yeah.
But rather the counselor would discuss with you, like, do you need this for insurance? Do you need this for your work? Do you need a proper diagnosis?
Right.
And if you think, you know what, I really want to know, do I have a specific disorder? Get a referral over to a clinical psychologist, go with that, and then, decide from there. Do you want to continue therapy with the clinical psychologist? Do you want to go back to your counselor? That works too. If you need medication, go to a psychiatrist right away and just, get medications from them.
Right.
Okay. So, Sara, just to ask you this question, what we're going through now collectively in the world, what a common mental health breakdown that's affecting all of us right now?
With the whole pandemic, it's really common to have social isolation, high levels of loneliness due to that.
Definitely.
Especially people who are living alone. They're no longer living with their family at the time that the pandemic hit. And it can be really tiring and, depressing for a lot of people to basically face themselves every single day.
Definitely.
Social isolation is one big thing. And then you've got obviously job loss, massive job loss, widespread. And, the financial challenges that comes with that, a lot of uncertainties. A lot of anxiety will come up from that because of, we're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
For the most part of our life, we don't know either. But now it's even more difficult to predict.
Because we can't have a plan.
Exactly. Right. And even if we try to have a plan, we don't know if it works because we've never experienced this in this generation. We've not gone through such a huge thing in the world.
Yeah. I agree. It's a very unique experience because the last time a global lockdown on this scale has happened was 100 years ago.
That's right.
Right? That was so long. And definitely, I think a lot of people just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. And the other frightening thing for a lot of people is that we usually get out of the house, go to work, go to school, have your own space, but now you're stuck with your family or your housemates and you have unresolved issues, conflicts that you've been avoiding this whole time. You're forced to confront it more and more. And if you can't handle that or you haven't figured out a way to handle this communication, it can be really anxiety provoking or it can send a lot of depressive symptoms coming up as well.
I agree. And also to those of you who maybe are living with your partners, a lot of unresolved issues that could be amplified even more during this lockdown, or what definitely happened to me with my family, not just with my partner. It's overwhelming. I think that's the only word I could think of to describe it.
Yeah. And I also realized that not overwhelming. It's just like this is mental paralysis that's happening. Like you just get stuck and you just cry sometimes. Yeah, I did. I cried sometimes.
Sometimes I cried a lot.
That's perfectly normal, guys. It's good to cry. It's good to release because that's your body's way of releasing, of allowing yourself to know that I am sad, I am scared. And you want to respect your body and your mind by letting it do what it needs to do. And if it needs to cry, you cry. That's perfectly okay.
That's also one thing that I've learned in therapy, that if I need to release my emotions and let it out, I should. If I need to cry, I do it.
It took us many years to recondition ourselves, right? To actually cry and talk about stuff.
Yeah, it's true because I remember being a kid and when I cry, my parents said, stop crying.
Yeah.
Stop it. Yeah. Don't cry. So I think that has kind of conditioned us to respond that way every time we cry. Okay, I'm not supposed to cry. I shouldn't show my weakness.
Ourselves. Yeah.
So anyways, there are many more questions, but I think we will first off start off with a very common term that's been thrown around a lot between my friends, my peers, the people that I follow is the word depression and anxiety, which I think I know there are many different types of disorders or mental health challenges on a bigger scale, but today maybe we'll just focus on these two. That's the most common. Is there such a thing called high functioning anxiety, high functioning depression, and just depression, anxiety? I mean, what do they mean, and are they any different from one another?
It's not a clinical term, high functioning.
Okay.
But to really just explain it, when we say high functioning anxiety, high functioning depression, it's usually with people who feel like, I have prolonged anxiousness, prolonged sadness, but I can still hold a job. I can still have my relationships and still have my family and all that kind of stuff. So it feels like you're imagining anxiety and depression to be, I can't get up, I can't do anything at all, right? But what it really actually is that when we have anxiety or we have depression, there are many levels of it that's mild to severe. And so for those with milder depression or milder anxiety, they can definitely still go out and have work and things like that. It might be episodes, like just some days or one day where you just feel really depressed. And the next day you're like, I'm good to go back out again. I'm not super happy, but I'm in there. You know, so when we talk about a clinical term, we will look at things like generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder. Those are more technical terminologies.
So no such thing as high functioning or low functioning.
Clinically, no such thing. But it's okay to use it if you're just talking about your experience. You're trying to relate.
To make people understand.
I see.
Understand. So,
okay.
I mean, we, like you said, there are days where we're depressed. There are times, moments of the day where we're super anxious and then we get overwhelmed and then we panic and hyperventilate. I'm sure we've all been through something like that before. But at what point does it become a problem, or I mean, lack of a better word, a disorder? Yeah.
Well, it's a disorder if you get diagnosed.
Right.
But if, broadly speaking, if you want to know, should I seek help? Should I really pay attention to this? One big factor I would say is whether it affects your work. Does it heavily affect your relationships? And in the sense that if you find yourself like, I don't want to go to work at all, if I can, I'm going to take MC right through or find ways to get out of it. Or you can't even allow yourself to have social relationships and you don't want to go out and meet your friends.
Yeah.
You know, things like that is affecting your daily functioning, how you normally would react and respond to your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
That's when, maybe you want to pay attention to this. You know, that's something your body is telling you that you're not dealing with, that you actually should turn to it.
Okay.
All right. And how do we differentiate between all these mental struggles that we are having? You know,
it's in
the
like
difference
into like what anxiety,
depression.
Right. Okay, to put it in a way, so anxiety, you would think of what? Worrying, nervousness, overthinking, panic, and things like that.
Yep.
Depression is usually like sadness, loneliness, feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, like I'm a useless person, I'm never good enough, things like that. To put it there's this American psychiatrist who depicted it quite interestingly. Anxiety is like if you're hanging off the edge of a cliff by your fingertips, you're about to fall down and you're feeling that fear of falling. That's what anxiety is kind of like. Whereas depression is you've already fallen. You already fallen at the bottom. Maybe your arm is kind of broken and you're feeling like, oh my goodness, I went through such a tragedy. I'm right at the very bottom. Literally even. That's a kind of a difference, I would say, between anxiety and depression.
That's a good metaphor to put things into perspective.
I'm just thinking about, the past moments where I felt...
Yeah. Do you have a bit of flashback?
A little bit here and there. And how about, I just wanted to ask, the difference between panic attacks and anxiety attacks.
Ooh, good question.
What's the difference? Yeah.
Good question. So anxiety is the feelings of, anxiousness and all
like
that.
Like the heart beating real fast.
You can have those symptoms as well. A panic attack is maybe about a 20-minute, 30-minute long of an attack where it's like you're having difficulty breathing. You feel your heart rate. You feel a pain in your chest. You're maybe shaking, you're sweating and all that. And it feels like you're going to die. Sometimes it could feel that way for some people. But each person experiences panic attack very differently, so I wouldn't generalize it. But there are moments like that. And sometimes it could even happen when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're just feeling this sense of, I can't breathe. That's sort of like what panic attack is. But there's a difference between an anxiety disorder and a panic disorder. Because a panic disorder is panicking about panicking.
So panicking about panicking.
Yeah, so if you've experienced panic attack once, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to go through that again. It was terrifying.
Right.
And so now I'm going to protect myself from ever getting a panic attack again. So I'm going to not go and, hike or run in case I bring up the panic attack again. I won't be overly strenuous.
So protecting yourself from going through the same experience again.
Yes, but actually you may not actually experience panic attack again. It really depends. So instead it becomes panicking about panicking. But anxiety is just, every now and then you might have these episodes of just being really nervous. Or right now, you guys mentioned feeling nervous about this episode. I am too, but we're not necessarily having an anxiety disorder. But we are anxious. And it's normal to feel this way.
Yeah, I think we are humans and it's so normal to feel depressed sometimes, anxious, lonely, nervous. All these emotions, I feel is so necessary to make us human.
And I think it's important for us to acknowledge that as well as we go through sadness, as we go through anger, so we can learn from it and become, wiser.
And learning how to cope with these emotions rather than just, shoving it to the side and not deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I used to be the kind of person who would pen things up and I don't talk about my emotions. Even though I'm angry, I'll say I'm not and I'll just pretend everything's okay. And obviously there would be times where I'll just blow up and say that I'm not okay. And because of my own choices when it comes to dealing with these emotions. But of course, after going through therapy, I've also learned to properly be able to process it. Even sometimes not on a deeper level. It could be a very brief, momentary feeling of anger, but I'm able to
regulate it.
Yes. I think that's so important for us. But, that's me. But what if a person is living with someone who could be going through these symptoms or these mental health struggles? How can they identify it to help them? Or, I know we can't really help the person, but to be able to identify, so you yourself as the person who's living with someone who's going through something, to know what to say or what to do. Right?
Yeah, it definitely hurts, to watch someone you care about go through such an experience, and you want to make sure that you're there to protect them or to help them whenever you can.
Yes.
similar to what I said earlier about how if you notice it's affecting your work, or your relationship. So likewise, if you see a family member or a friend going through those experiences, or they're not going out with you for lunch anymore, you know, and it's a general thing, not just you, maybe they don't like you, I don't know. But generally speaking, if you notice these kind of changes in behavior, then maybe you want to pay more attention. That's when you want to talk to them and ask them like, hey, you know, I'm a little bit worried about you. And, you know, notice these differences, notice these changes. Just want to check in, like, how are you doing? You know, is there anything that maybe I can help you with? And you just want to talk about it. I'm here to listen. But it's really important that we invite them to share. And we express that we are worried, we're concerned, but not guilt trip them.
Yeah, of course.
You know, some people have a tendency just like, you know, it hurts me so much when I see you like this. Can you not be this way?
Yeah.
You know, you're hurting your family. Can you see what it's doing to everyone?
That's
Can't do that.
not okay.
That's awful. But it's coming from a, you know, well-meaning place.
For sure.
But it doesn't come across that good.
And it may not be received in the way that the person intended to give.
Exactly.
Right? I'm sure the person who asks questions like that, and I'm sure a lot of people do that because it's out of the lack of awareness, I would say. It's not a bad question to ask or to say, but obviously with someone who's going through mental health, I mean, this is speaking from experience. I used to be the person who would say things like that. And when I was going through that and people said that to me, it really triggered me. I felt so misunderstood. I felt so lonely. And I felt like nobody understand what I'm going through.
Yeah.
If I make sense.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you felt rejected because of the words that's being used by your friends and family, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I just like pause this moment. What you just did, that was empathy. Validating her feelings.
Thank you.
It was really good job. Yeah, and it feels good just hearing that, like, she gets you. She gets that you felt rejected.
Yeah.
You know, so when we want to talk to someone who, you know, trying to reach out to help them, hear them out and then really find truth in what they're saying. Even if, you know, sometimes someone can say, you know, I just broke up. I'm never going to find anyone again. I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life. You might think like,
You're not going to be lonely, please.
Yeah, you know, but if you say that, you're rejecting them.
Yeah.
You're rejecting their reality. But instead to say, yeah, I know I can feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, you just lost someone that's important to you. So you say things like that, they can tell you're reaching out. You really want to be there and help them.
Yeah. I think just showing grace and having empathy and choice of words are very important. I mean, you can be trying to mean the same thing, but the way you say it, it can come off completely different. I learned it the hard way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, to show empathy. But again, a lot of people don't really know how to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is difficult. And honestly, even as a professional, we are trained and we are constantly practicing how to exert empathy. You know, I can only give a few tips, which is basically finding truth in what they say.
Yeah.
And then really trying to see what is it that they're feeling, what is it that they're thinking, and reflect that. Like what you did just now. You can hear in her words, she felt rejected. Say that. And then they're like, oh, you're empathizing.
Yeah. You
Validating.
feel me too. You know?
Exactly.
Okay.
What if, Sarah, if there are no symptoms that you can tell from a person that's going through depression? Like I had a friend, he was going through massive depression and he took his life. And nobody knew what he was going through because he was just his normal self. He was happy and always happy-go-lucky, never showing an ounce of difference in his routine, daily routine. And one day he just, you know, so I'm wondering about that too. So sometimes people don't have that. Those symptoms that you can tell they're going through something.
Honestly, listen, like sometimes we don't know. We really don't, and that's the truth because we don't know everything. We can't protect, we can't save everyone. That is the very, very painful truth.
Yeah, that's what I learned last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if they are there to willingly show you, you know, that they're in pain and they need help, then great. But if they don't, that's also their choice at the end of the day. And when it comes to helping people, we need to remember to respect their choices no matter what. Even if you think therapy is going to be good for you, getting out of bed's good for you, and you can like force that down their throats. But if they're not receptive of it, it's not going to work. And so in cases like that, which is, you know, really unfortunate, and there's a sense of, as someone left behind. You wish you had known.
Yeah.
You wish you had seen it, right? But if it's true conversations and you couldn't tell, you just couldn't tell. And it's not your responsibility at the end of the day.
It's not. Yeah.
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 And I think that's the toughest part to take. Yeah, it's never easy. And I'm so sorry you went through that, Lizen.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's good to, open up conversations like this
Yeah.
and normalize it.
Yeah.
That, it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what we can do before this happens or after this happens is to educate ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation right now. But I also just want to put it out there that, all the conversation that we're having here, the symptoms that Sara has shared is not a way for you to self-diagnose, okay? So please don't do that and say, oh, yes, I have depression or I have anxiety. But please reach out to a licensed psychologist. I hope by now you guys know the difference between a counselor, psychologist, and psychiatrist. If you didn't, just caught us. You can rewind a little bit to the beginning of the show and check it out. Okay. But yeah, I think we have touched on quite a bit, but
We have.
maybe now I just had a thought. Traumas. A lot of these anxiety and feeling depressed could also come from the past and not so much the present time.
Sure.
And it's like a lingering, I guess.
I think how you respond
Yeah.
to issues that are in your life right now.
Correct.
It's from
The
how, from the past.
how your past experiences has kind of conditioned you to be this way. So, well, as a mental health counselor, how would you say our trauma can affect us as adults right now in the way that we are and the way we respond?
Yeah, well, trauma, to begin with, different people experience trauma differently.
Yes,
And you
definitely.
have mild to extreme levels
Yeah.
of trauma. And essentially, some of these traumas, they affect the way we think about ourselves, about the world,
Yeah.
how people around us reacted when the traumatic experience happened. That also sort of teaches us things.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're just learning.
Yeah.
From when we were children all the way to we're adults, we're learning stuff. So if we learn that, even something like, okay, if you got bullied at school, that can be a very traumatizing experience for some people, and if you're bullied, and you told your family about it, no one cared. Everyone ignored you. They said just man up, or just toughen up.
Just tell the
usual
teacher.
answer we get.
It's okay. People can't hurt you. It's fine. Just go to school. Be that way. You learn that, okay, I'm going through a tough time. I am taught to suppress. I am taught that me being this way is weak and that's wrong. And if I were to continue like this, people are going to be upset with me. My parents are going to be upset with me for being weak. So then you want to bring that forward into your adulthood. And sure, you're not bullied right now, maybe, but you learned, oh, that thing happened at work. I'm not supposed to talk about my emotions. I'm not supposed to tell people that I can't handle this because I'm going to be weak.
Yep.
Oh, dear Lord. We learned
I can
experiences
so
like
relate
this.
to that. So relate. Oh my
On
goodness.
many levels, I
Yes,
think.
on many levels. You used to suppress everything,
Yeah,
Just not
same
talk
here.
about it until it manifested into something else, like a tumor.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you want to share about that?
So I had surgery done last year. It was a massive tumor that was growing on my neck for the past 5 years that I finally realized that I needed to get it out.
Yep.
So why it manifested there was because I think I was suppressing a lot of my emotions in my throat area. Like I wasn't talking about the stuff that I was feeling. I was going through. I was going through quite a number of stuff during that 5 years.
Yeah.
I know Maggie
Yeah.
knew about that. I was on the show last year as well talking about it. I was going through a divorce last year.
Yeah.
And I think there was just an accumulation of everything that I was going through in my relationship.
Yeah.
And it just kind of
Compounded into
something that was massive
Yeah.
and red. And and I felt so relieved after taking it out. That moment when I woke up from surgery and I realized that thing was gone.
Yes.
And I felt this whole thing lifted off my back.
Yeah.
The divorce, the relationship, the problems that I was facing throughout those years.
Yep.
Just lifted.
So happy to hear that.
It's just, I just needed that.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a physical thing that I just needed to see come out from my body.
So much relief.
So much relief. And I found so much strength in that relief as well. So, yeah.
Well.
So talk about your emotions, guys, because one day it's going to suppress so much in one of, you know,
somewhere.
One part of your body, and it's going to manifest into something else. And you don't want that for your body, you know.
And even just for your being able to just be happy on an everyday basis, just talking about things. I think for me, I'm a talker.
Yeah.
Ever since therapy, I need to talk, even if it's not my therapist, my girlfriends, I need to let it out because if I don't, it just is suppressing this in.
And do you talk to Joseph about it as well?
Yes. So I think that is a breakthrough in our relationship, being able to talk about our deepest, darkest, most painful traumas, experiences, just things that we don't normally talk about and never really got to, or just, I guess, never really knew how to. But ever since we both go therapy, you see, so ever since that has happened, we had this breakthrough and it has changed the relationship in ways that I could never see coming. So yes, talk about your problems. Talk about your shit. Let your shit out. I think that's so important. Yeah.
Be honest with yourself.
And if you're not okay, just say you're not okay and not pretend that you're okay. I think on a more general basis, that's just so important.
Yeah. And the thing about vulnerability is that people are scared.
Yeah.
They think that that's going to push people away, but actually being vulnerable brings you closer. Just sharing these stories.
It's so true.
Yeah. It's a
And
lot.
you feel less alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Feel less alone. We can relate.
Yes. Because when, I guess I can speak from my own experiences. Before I used to be so open about my struggles, I used to be very hateful. Because I feel like the world don't understand me. The world is a piece of shit that don't know what I'm going through. And I feel like I'm all by myself in this little cave or little hole that I was in. But ever since I'm able to, you know, talk it out with my friends and family, not so much family yet, maybe my friends and my boyfriend and my therapist, like I said, it changed me as a person.
You know, you don't have to talk about your stuff to everyone. Yes. Not everyone is your people.
It's true.
It's just that you got to find your own tribe that supports you and acknowledge you and just gives you that superpower that you need to go on, to move.
It's true because not everyone knows what to say or understands you or see things in your perspective.
Yeah.
Because we are going through this journey called life on a different track. We're running our own race. So we are seeing things from different perspective. And, you know, it's so true that once you find your tribe, it's such a precious thing to have this group of people, could be a handful or could be one person that will make a lot of difference.
A really strong support system.
That's right.
Yeah. As a therapist as well, you know, sure, I can be there to listen to you and help you out and guide you, but it's very important that outside of therapy, you have a support system. Whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's a partner. You always need to sort of fill that little system, build it up, build some resources for yourself, self-love. You know, all those kind of wonderful things are important.
It's also your own choice because I know there are some people who feel like they don't have anyone else or anyone at all. And I think to a certain extent, you can't rely on people to open their doors for you. You need to start reaching out yourself as well. And don't be shy about it. Because, I mean, I've always been very open on my Instagram and when I put up stories. And a few of them, I think a few stories really broke my heart because they would say that they feel like they have absolutely no one, not even their closest, like partner, sister, siblings, nobody at all. So if you're listening to this right now and if you are that person, know that it's so true that when we say you're not alone, but it's so important for yourself to take the initiative to reach out. You know, try. Because
that baby step.
Baby steps. And I hope that having Sara here, maybe after this, you can reach out to Sara as well.
And I also want to acknowledge that, you know, can be difficult sometimes to see that no one is there for you, no one understands you. Sometimes, it could be your own resistance towards reaching out, but that's coming from a place of fear. And it's really, really valid. And even when you guys talk about your past experiences of suppressing emotions, I want you to know that it's not wrong that you did that, and not to blame yourself for doing that, because that's what you learned.
Thank you.
Okay.
You learned that through your experiences. That was the way you used to survive. You protected yourself through suppression.
Survival
but then
mode.
It
We
is.
were in survival mode.
It is. But then now you learned that there's a different method now, and it's safe for you to use this method by expressing and talking about it freely.
Wow. You really did put things into perspective.
Yeah, you opened my eyes.
There's nothing wrong with suppressing, because I always believe in you don't know what you don't know. If all you know is to suppress your feelings, which was what I guess me, you, all of us
did at one point.
knew at one point.
Absolutely.
That's all we knew to do to survive.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. I've learned a lot today, to be honest.
Did too.
I'm glad.
Well, I think we've touched on quite a bit, but hyperventilation, we touched on that earlier. Panic.
Yeah, panic. We did a little bit
Yeah.
on that. But how do we calm down?
Yeah, how do we calm down? Like, okay,
Breathing,
I've hyperventilated before, and I didn't know what the hell it was. My fingers started cramping all the way up till my face was cramping. I couldn't feel my face. It was like I injected Botox that I can't feel anything. I can't laugh about it right now, but when it happened,
scary.
it's scary. I'm like, am I gonna die? Like you said, I'm gonna die. I feel like, am I having a heart attack? Is this how it feels? And I started not being able to breathe. My chest felt heavy.
Tight and heavy,
So
right?
tight and heavy. I can't open my mouth to utter a word. I don't know how to ask for help because I can't even scream. It felt like someone was on my chest and pushing me down and trying to, I don't want to say the word kill, but like just really pushing me down. So, and I'm sure hyperventilation is quite a common situation that people do go through once in a while, especially on a high stress level during a period of time. So if, let's say, I'm going through hyperventilation, I'm hyperventilating right now, what are some of the things that I should do to first relieve it?
To say stay calm is kind of
Right?
like the understatement.
Like a little practical tips for those who are listening.
Depending on what your experience is, like if you're having difficulty breathing, you know, the thing about hyperventilating, shortness of breath, is that you think you're lacking oxygen, but actually you have too much oxygen.
Right.
So you actually need to put in carbon dioxide in there. So in other words, instead of taking really shallow, short breaths, you want to slow down and take long, deep breaths that go straight to your stomach, not your lungs, your stomach, like a diaphragmatic breathing.
Okay.
So then you really feel a controlled, regulated breathing pace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood.
So you want to take that long deep breath in, bring the oxygen in, but you want to release it as well. So it depends on you as a person. Try it differently on a regular basis first before you actually go into a panic attack mode or you hyperventilate and things like that. It's to practice deep breathing, get used to that. And really to tell yourself, like self-talk. That's important. To tell yourself, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling my hands tremble. I'm feeling this pain in my chest. I know I can see what's happening to me. I'm mindful what's happening to me. Okay, what do I need to do?
Yep.
Do I start with breathing? Okay, let me try with breathing. Do I just sit down? Let me start with sitting down. This will pass. This will pass. And it will pass maybe 20 minutes. But
Or
if
maybe
it's
shorter sometimes.
Or shorter as well. Yeah, you're right. When some people feel like, what if it's a heart attack, a real one this time? There are differences between a heart attack and a panic attack. Heart attack feels like a squeezing sensation in your chest, whereas panic attack can feel like a sharp stabbing into it. It depends. There are also other ways to compare it. Feel free to look it up online.
Yes, I think it's good to know these
good
symptoms.
to educate yourself, for other people around you as well. If you have experienced a panic attack, any sort of similar sort of symptoms, talk to a friend or a loved one or your colleague, whoever you're with most often, and say like, hey, if I get this again, come protect me, be there with me. Guide
Just
me
hold
through,
my
hold my hand,
hand.
or, talk me through to tell me that things are okay, that I'm not dying, that they will get me the help that they need, that I need, and that, this is how to breathe. They just need to remind me how to breathe.
Yeah, it's true. Learning how to breathe is one of the homeworks that I get all the time from my therapist. And if anything, I'm not really deep breathing properly a lot of times. I keep my breath so short. That's it. And it feels awkward for me to take deep, long breaths, especially together with my therapist. I'm like, so long? Okay. You know? So I think that's a good practice.
Yeah.
So
you can also try mindfulness of, like a 5 senses. So especially if you're feeling anxious, not just when you're in a panic attack mode, but you're just nervous about going through a podcast or starting a meeting or doing a presentation, look around the room and pay attention to what you're seeing, what you're hearing, sort of like identify and label it in your mind. So it's forcing your brain to not think about whatever you're trying to panic about and that you're anxious about.
Distracting it.
In a way, distracting it, yes.
Also meditating at the same time.
Yeah. So you're grounding yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of letting that moment pass. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Another thing pretty similar to the 5 senses that you've shared is one of my ways of coping is to find the sounds around you. It could be a car driving past, birds chirping, the aircon running, or just your own breathing. Then usually it helps me, but obviously not every time. But that is a good tool that I've had myself to help me cope.
Yeah, do think of it as having a toolkit in your mind. Like fill it up with all these little resources, test it out every now and then. Yeah. So when you need it, just pull it out.
I love it.
Because not everything will work for you.
Yes.
Some things work for you, some things work for me.
That's true. Yeah, and we obviously don't know you enough to be able to tell you what to do. Again, don't self-diagnose yourself. Right. Reach out to a licensed psychologist if you really need to. And well, Sara, we are coming almost to the end of the episode. That was a very, very enlightening episode that we have. And I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you.
Well, I guess before we go, we have to talk about the options to reach out for help. Let's be honest, therapy in general is not very cheap.
It's not.
Quite expensive for some.
It is.
Especially with what's going on right now, the pandemic, with the lack of job and pay cuts and all of that. Our financial stability has been affected in many ways. So what are the options to reach out for help? And if someone cannot afford therapy?
Great. Therapy is available in, places like government hospitals and private hospitals.
Oh, really?
You have that. Psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, they work there as well. Okay. So government hospitals obviously are cheaper, or government clinics as well. Those are options if you choose to use them. They might have longer wait times. They're, give and take and all that, but there's definitely an option there. Private practices like mine, we have different private practice have different rates. It can be really expensive, but it can also be a lot more affordable. Depending on the level of training that a therapist has, it depends on the facilities where their office is at. All sorts of different factors come into play when it comes to how they set their prices. So that's private practices, and then you also have NGOs. There are excellent NGOs like MMHA, Sales Health. They provide therapy, sometimes free, sometimes at a very, very low rate by licensed professionals or trainees. So trainees who are, in their final year of their master's, right before they get licensed, they are also good options as long as you're comfortable and willing to give them a chance to help you out. They have really low rates and sometimes free. And of course, we have alternative options like online therapy. Some people offer it cheaper, because without the facilities and all that. There's also text-based therapy, call-based therapy.
Text-based.
Text you. Like a friend.
Yeah, not like a friend, but like a proper counseling session, but through text. That's also possible. But it depends on you and whether that works for you. Because some people just prefer the in-person, that physical presence and all that. Some people prefer text because they don't need to talk. They don't need to look at you. And you have, text throughout the day. Yeah, the different options out there, even in Malaysia as well.
Right. And what about your practice? Like, how can people reach out to Cara if they're interested?
Yeah, just go to our website, cara.space. We're also on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Check us out. And, we provide really affordable services, I would say. We start from 80 ringgit per session.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's very affordable.
It is. We try.
Yeah. How long does the session go for?
An hour for individual therapy. There are other therapy types as well, like couples therapy. My colleague provides hypnotherapy.
Okay.
Oh, have you tried it?
No, I have not. I have tried EMDR.
EMDR. Yeah. Yeah, there are different types of therapy available out there. So you check it out, look at different practices and see what works for you. Give it a shot. With Cara, like this month, because of World Mental Health Day, we're actually trying out promotion for 50% off the first single session.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, gentlemen, you guys heard it. It's Cara.
.space.
Go check them out. The Sara and her friends who came together to start this practice. I think what you guys are doing is amazing to provide and bridge the gap between being able to afford and not afford therapy. I think that's amazing. So if you guys are trying to find a place to start your mental health fitness, that's what you call it.
Mental fitness.
Yeah, mental fitness, or just want to reach out to someone to talk to about your issues, I think this is a good place to start. And if needed, I mean, Sara's the best person to ask to. They will definitely refer to you to a psychologist and then psychiatrist if really needed. So that is the differences.
And I love that what Cara offers is really inclusive.
Yes.
So any one of you who has problems and all that, just go and talk to them. Just need to talk.
Despite of your race, your gender, your belief.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter.
We do not discriminate. We want to make sure people of any background is able to access it. But we are also aware of the limitations of, finances.
Yes.
So this is the best that we can do for now.
Yeah.
And we want to constantly open up that conversation and provide help wherever possible. So even things that you guys are doing today, it's fantastic. And I'm so glad you guys invited me here because we are having this conversation.
Yes.
And it's important that we do.
Yeah. And, when people say mental health, it can feel intimidating. I hope that being able to open up like this and doing more of it in times to come, we're able to normalize talking about our mental health. It's kind of just like having a fever and you need help and reach out to someone to help you feel a little bit better. I think that's completely normal.
We're talking about mental health. We're not necessarily talking about mental illnesses.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like your physical health, your fitness.
right.
We talk about going to the gym, yoga.
Exactly.
We can talk about changing the way we think. We talk about improving communication with our loved ones.
Amen to that. I love it. Well, yes, I guess we have come to the end of the episode.
Right.
Well, as usual, we've got a bit of a takeaway for you.
Yeah, so guys, I think what we could take away from this episode today is that to always remember that your problems do not define you. So observe them, and it often reflect your fears. Your problems often reflect your fears. So what you do and how you overcome it, that matters the most. Okay, so that defines you. Your strength defines you, and wisdom is planted. What you do with that seed, however, guys, well, that's where your power lies.
Oh, wow. Amen to that. Well, of course, anxiety, depression, or whatever mental health struggles look different on everyone.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
So pay attention to that. If you know someone is going through, ask questions and just be there for them. Show grace, show empathy. And if that's yourself, don't ever hesitate to reach out. And I hope that by having this episode, you feel like you're not alone. You're less alone. We are here with you. I guess that's about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the first episode. I'm so glad it started off feeling this way. I don't know how I'm feeling right now is pretty overwhelmed after what has happened in the past 6 months. And being able to be here today and be talking about this and hoping some of you will be able to take it and change your life in the smallest way or the biggest way. I don't know. But yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are on Instagram, the Head Over Heels. Oh my gosh, I forgot our Instagram handle. Yes.
I think it's Head Over Heels.
You guys know it. The Head Over Heels. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. So go check out our YouTube so you can check out our new set and also put a face to Sara's very soothing and beautiful voice. Yes. So Sara, thank you once again. We hope to have you more maybe in the next episode if we do talk about mental health part 2.
Yes.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, our co-host for today is the beautiful Lazanne, also a very soothing voice. I can listen to her talk all day.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Maggie. And thank you for having me on board.
Yes, ladies, thank you once again. And you guys who are listening, thank you. Okay, that's enough. Thank you for today. So don't forget to fall head over heels with yourself and always. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye and take care. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it shed some light on how we view mental health. A little tip from Sara is that you can also get a brief consultation with your potential therapist before you commit to a therapy plan or sign up for the first session. Well, this is a good way for you to ask questions and to get a feel whether or not the therapist is a good fit for you. However, not all practices may offer this, but there's no harm asking more about the therapist before you commit. And remember, please do not self-diagnose yourself based on the conversations that we've had today. And please do reach out to a licensed psychologist for a proper diagnosis if needed. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.